This is E&P Reports, a service of Editor and Publisher magazine. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And once again, I bid you hello. I'm Mike Blinder. I'm publisher of Editor and Publisher magazine. And unless you've been under a rock for the past few years, you know who Ryan Dohrn is, because he has appeared at just about every major media conference. He's put on webinars for thousands and thousands of media companies. He's trained over 15,000 ad reps in the media industry in over 7 countries. And more importantly, he's a master at getting us to change. And that's sometimes the hardest thing for us to do, to change our tactics, our style, and how we make our presentations to our prospective advertisers. And that's what today's conversation with Ryan is all about, because he recently did a study with 100 proposals. He asked media companies to submit to him. Half of them worked and half of them didn't work. So we've got 50 that worked and 50 that didn't work. And he analyzed them and put together the metrics that we have to understand for what it takes to have a winning media proposal, whether it's digital, whether it's legacy, whether it's a combination of both, in order for us to gain essential new business during the crisis of COVID-19. And the results are fascinating. So let's do it. Let's go one-on-one from Brainswell Media. Here's Ryan Dohrn. Well, there's my good friend Ryan Dohrn. Ryan, here's my first most important question to you here on E&P Reports. How come I look massively older and you look massively younger when you and I both were working together back in, 1999?
I don't know if it's maybe my Danish roots or something. I don't know if it's, what it is.
Is it like living in Augusta? Is the water better there than Tampa Bay?
It is the humidity. No, I think you might have the humidity in Florida that we still have here. I don't know what it is. Or I've just, I don't know, maybe you've been running at a faster pace. I don't know, but this is 30 years for me.
Full disclosure. I'm the publisher of Editor and Publisher magazine, but the Blinder Group, my consulting firm, has been around for 24 years in the industry. You were a client of mine. You were running for Billy Morris. You had just sold your horse publications.
Yep.
Now remember, there's 2 Morrises. You were sold it to the Billy Morris in Augusta.
Right.
And I was working with you. We were having fun launching new products. And it was very innovative back in those dark ages, 2000, 2001, and all that kind of cool stuff. But now you're the premier, I got to say this, you are the rockin' premier media sales consultant in the industry now. You're everywhere.
That.
And I love I watch your podcasts. I've read one of your books. I think you're great. I think you really got a good handle on media sales. Moreover, you inspire, which I think is half of the challenge, right? I mean, you may disagree with me, and I'm going to shut up in a second. Not that I don't like talking, but I always say that the customer is the easier sell, the rep is the harder sell. Do you agree?
Agreed. 1,000% agree. And as I travel across the country, it's one of the biggest things that I have to fight against, Mike. And I'd share that with all your listeners, whether they're a salesperson, a publisher, an owner, or whatever. Half of the battle is convincing the salesperson to try something new, because Mike, you observe this. They try to redefine insanity every day.
Right. They do the same thing.
What are you guys doing?
Over and over and over. And I get that, Pavlov's dogs. I mean, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is 1, but it want to change in the first place, right? I mean,
right.
Getting change it's hard. And that's why we're talking today, because crisis helps change happen.
Right.
And I hate to say that sometimes because you and I both know 2008 accelerated a lot of the change in the industry.
Indeed.
This crisis, and that's why we're going to talk a lot about what you're learning through COVID, has accelerated so many different changes now. Changes in sales techniques because we have to. Changes in print frequency, adaptation truly to digital, and of course, more aggressive sales tactics. Let's first do the lay of the land before we get into COVID and your new study. I'm very excited.
Sure.
Do you agree? I have 5 questions for you because because I've been doing sales training much longer than you, and I'm now I'm a publisher. But first, do you agree that the newspaper industry's biggest challenge was that they were so demand driven for decades? taking so much revenue off the transom, so much of that insert revenue, classifieds being 50% of revenue, which was demand driven as well, that the sales reps weren't really selling. They were just learning how to negotiate. They weren't really beating the bushes and becoming what I like to call a street fighter that goes out and deals with the rejection. Do you agree that was the first challenge?
I do. Yeah, I do. And the other thing is they just really became, for so many years, just really glorified order takers. I mean, it was all about building a relationship and managing an account. And the problem with account management is you only get to a certain point of revenue and then you plateau out. So if you don't have the skill set to go out there and really fight the good fight, prospect effectively, present amazing proposals with amazing packaging options, then what happens is you become an account manager. An account manager should be paid a salary. Salespeople that fight the good fight, those are the people that should be paid commission. And that's the thing that's interesting, is they became account managers for so long. And then we have to go in there and try to teach them how to go from being sort of a armchair quarterback to going out there and actually picking the ball up and running plays.
In other words, I hate to use that analogy, but farmers rather than hunters.
Agreed.
And in some sales organizations, there are hunters and farmers. The hunter, takes over, does the prospecting, and then turns it over to another team that does the farming. But the other problem is you have 33% on average, at least in my studies for over the years, of everyone's list churns.
Right, correct.
So if you're not building, then you watch this happen. The second challenge was that, and again, I want your opinion on this.
Sure.
That leaning on verticals, leaning on classifieds for our revenue, which in my humble opinion was never a core competency of the industry. That was just some amazingly smart guy lining up columns in a newspaper saying, let's call those classifications, and taking ads in a marketplace setting where buyers and sellers, here comes the internet, where there's a lot more advanced verticals, and that revenue's gone. Do you agree?
Right. Yes. It was too easy to attack with the internet. It was just too easy. And it was going down the tubes before Facebook even came on the scene.
Or
when the internet became commercially viable really in 96, 97, 98. And immediately it was one of the first places that got attacked. Look at my businesses. One of the reasons that Mr. Morris and I first had our very first conversation was my wife said, "Hey, I've got horses that need to be sold." She was raising horses, and then the internet, boom, all of a sudden off we go, and we take 20 pages of classifieds down to one, and I'm getting a phone call saying, "Hey, we need to talk." So it was always ripe for vulnerability over the course of time. But you're right, leaning too much on those verticals.
So you don't spend much time consulting newspapers, and you have them, correct me if I'm wrong, all shapes and sizes, and you're not just newspapers anymore. You have niche publications, you have digital only. You don't tell them to go down the vertical road, do you anymore? Or is that?
No, we don't. And so the offerings have to be quite diverse. And if you're calling on an advertiser and your lead is, I'm calling from the newspaper, more than likely you're not going to get very far. So what we're talking about is the diversification of, hey, let's be a one-stop marketing shop. And oh, by the way, look, what this newspaper can do for you. And I spent a considerable amount of time in small town America, working with community newspaper groups, because there is where we're finding a lot of great success, because these small business owners, even in 2020, still think that they can only do Facebook and be successful.
Of course.
And the newspaper is a wonderful way, niche magazines, a wonderful way for them to connect with their community in some vibrant ways to move the needle.
Yeah, the number one objection is not newspapers don't work. It's we use word of mouth.
Right.
And now the number two objection to digital is, I'm all set, I have a Facebook page.
Right.
And we're not the only media that hears that.
Right,
Everybody hears that. I mean, you got to get over those first. So with this propensity now of us having to dive into a different paradigm, if I can use that word, and we're doing it now through this crisis, do you still believe in branding? Before we get into this, do you believe there's still a need to have that banner ad on a website live there that gets clicked very, very few times? This is the challenge. I mean, because the rep sells it and hopes there'll be 1 million clicks. Where's your head on branding versus instant results in today's sales process?
So what I'm doing is I'm changing, great question. I'm changing from branding to brand maintenance, because the problem with branding is when people hear the word branding, they think, I spend money, I don't get anything.
Right.
And when an advertiser runs an ad, they want to see a result like this. Okay. Well, we don't sell magic. Okay. We sell marketing. If we sold magic, I'd be a millionaire. They'd be a billionaire. We don't sell magic. We sell marketing, and marketing's a process. Post-COVID selling, in my opinion, and what I've observed with my clients is brand maintenance is critical. It's all about protecting your turf. And you've
Exactly.
got to think about protecting your turf from companies like Amazon. We should have been protecting our turf when Walmart moved into our small communities. So this idea of branding in an advertiser's ear, Mike, is I spend money, I don't get anything. When a sales rep begins to phrase brand maintenance is, hey, we need to spend a certain percentage of your budget to protect your turf. All it takes, because brand loyalty is pretty much dead, across the country, we see people driving different cars, eating different places, blah, blah. When someone protects their brand, it's more than branding. It's fighting the good fight, putting money on the table so that some young whippersnapper down the corner, that's how we'd say it in Georgia, some whippersnapper down the corner pops up a little shop and sells an inferior product at a much lower price. Our serious advertiser of 25 years using word of mouth is all of a sudden saying, what's happening? You didn't protect your turf.
Exactly.
And so I like brand maintenance as opposed to branding because it changes the conversation that we're talking about.
So if you want to sell the 3 C's, click, call, or customer through the door, that's a different campaign versus brand maintenance.
It is.
Everybody needs to do a little bit of both. Pepsi does coupons.
Correct.
Pepsi does with the big stacks in the grocery store, and they also put their logo on race cars. Exactly. I mean, there's two sides to it. All right, so let's get into this study. I don't want to take too much time. We're discussing COVID-19. You obviously are out there now doing everything you can to protect this critical revenue for your clients and for the industry as a whole. You just did a recent study. Tell me about it. About 100. What was it? 100 different companies? Go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah. So what we did is we were starting, as I talked with my publishers, magazines, newspapers, radio, TV, a lot more on the print side of the business, just to be fair to everybody that's listening, is that we really started determining that nothing was universal with these salespeople. Salespeople were saying different things, proposing different ways. Pricing was moderately similar, but everybody was doing something different. And what they weren't doing was what I like to call, Mike, repeatable patterns of success. What they weren't doing is really focusing in on what I like to refer to as the Tom Brady principle. And what's interesting about it, and I'm a Chicago Bears fan, just to be clear.
I was about to say, I know you're a Chicago Bears fan. And I live here in Tampa Bay, if you're interested. But go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So, Tom Brady spent his first 20 seasons of his career with the New England Patriots, which really had not been done very often before. Played in 9 Super Bowls, wins 6 of those, both of which, some of the highest stats, if not the largest stats in NFL history, yet people still say he's not the best. So when you think about that as it relates to sales, even when I'm able to go in and say to a group of 10 salespeople, here's what works, here's what doesn't work. The problem is there's the psychology of human behavior that's called denialism, okay? It's a person's choice to deny the reality that's presented to them. So I say to reps all the time, hey guys, why does every proposal look different in this company? Why does every meeting with an advertiser sound and look different? Why are you all of you are prospecting in a different way? You don't go work for Pfizer or Mercedes-Benz or GlaxoSmithKline or even John Deere and say, well, I'm going to do it Ryan's way. I'm going to do it Mike's way. They found a system that works. So what we did is we looked at 100 proposals and we said, give me 50 that won business, 50 that worked, earned business, and 50 that didn't earn business.
Excellent.
And then we started dissecting those to come up with what were the similarities in that, what were the things that worked and didn't work. But even when we presented the facts, they still didn't want to follow the pattern that worked because of this. We're programmed to deny things that don't fit our view, that don't fit our past. And they don't want to change. So that's where it started.
I find it fascinating. I go into media companies and I find that there are no standardized tools for sales. They basically come up with their stuff they're going to sell. They train up the reps on how to sell. And they say, now you just go out there and do it. And everybody has their own way of doing it. So let's go down the study. What was the most telling things that you saw from these 100 proposals?
Well, so what we really noticed is that what was killing a lot of the proposals was what I refer to as it sure would be nice if syndrome. Whereas the salespeople were tweaking proposals, making changes. Well, it sure would be nice if we had this, or it sure would be nice if we had that. And that was one of the biggest things, besides the fact that nothing was universal. It sure would be nice if factored into everything. So here's what it comes down to is salespeople sell the way that they want to be sold. So if they're a logical seller, they sell in a logical way. If they're an egomaniac, they sell in an ego way. If they're an emotional seller, they sell in an emotional way.
They haven't learned to be chameleons. They haven't learned. No, they can't. They don't do the chameleon effect. They don't adjust themselves.
Nope.
Right, go ahead.
Yep. And so if they were dealing with an emotional buyer,
right,
and they were a logical seller, they were given data, facts, stats. We're selling digital. And if you're kind of a closet geek and you love the digital stuff, you start talking about, oh, I can take this phone and I can capture device ID and I can do this. And the advertisers would go, what? I just want to get more people in here to buy cars. You know?
Yeah, right.
And so the universal, nothing being universal was really, killing the sale. And the fact that the sales reps weren't adapting their proposals to the person that they were in front of was really one of the biggest things that, that we observed. So if we can convince them to follow the facts that I'm going to give you here in a minute, I think you'll see an uptick in sales. And we have seen it when teams will fully get on board. But the hardest part is convincing them. So these facts, I was just on a webinar where I presented some of these facts to a publisher and a group of salespeople. It was dead silent because at a certain point, you can't deny the facts at a certain point.
Well, but it hurts. It changed. All right. So let's get down to the street. Okay. Let's stay out of the 30,000. Give us the facts. What do you got?
So what we found is of the people that reviewed the proposals, one of the first things was 79% of those test users only scanned. They didn't read. They scanned what was written in front of them. So when they were scanning, only 16% read word by word, read the proposal word by word. So nearly everybody that read those proposals, and they were multi-page, which I'm a big fan of keeping it very, very simple, even one page if possible. But in a lot of cases, you do need to show your digital options and what you're going to do with special sections and things like that. But 79%, Mike, did not read. Now, let me ask you this. Does that surprise you?
No. I remember, I have to insert this. When I was managing an FM station in Portland, Maine, my sales team was screaming at me to build a new media kit for them. Our media kits, I kept saying, no one reads these things. So I did it for them. And I inserted in a study, their favorite TV show was My Mother, the Couch. I put that line in, didn't tell a soul. And over 2 years, not one buyer or one sales rep saw it. So I realized that nobody, these long, lengthy media kits we put out, who's reading that? I mean, media buyers throw them in a drawer and never. So go on.
They grab the pricing page and they throw the rest in the drawer. Well, I thought, okay, perhaps this is just jaded media people. And so I went online to find another study. I found another study of 1,200 pages that Hire Hillman did. What's interesting, the numbers were exactly the same. So the first thing that we're able to pull out of this is that, proposals that won business, believe it or not, less text,
more visual.
45% had less text than those that lost. So those that won had 45% less text. So what if we said this, Mike? What if we said, hey guys, go to the current proposal template you're using and remove almost 50% of the text?
Can't do it.
They're not reading it anyway. They won't do it.
But because it helps reinforce in their mind what they're selling, and they don't understand how to put visuals in the PowerPoint anyway, so they just fill out the lines. And they're taking out it's just like a bad speaker, right? I've seen your speeches, man. You're all visuals on the screen. If I see a speaker that just gives me bullets and he's repeating his bullets, I'm saying, I don't have to be here. Just throw me the PowerPoint. I'm going into my room to get work done.
People say all the time, I can't make your session, Ryan. Could I get a copy of the deck?
I
say the deck's meaningless to you without my words.
Right, exactly. But go ahead. So
that was two parts there to the very first thing on the proposals. Now, here's the thing for your listeners, for your viewers. I know it's easy to hear. It's hard to execute on. So what is a sales director, ad director, et cetera? My opinion is what you need to do is go in there with the red pen, if you will, like in grammar school, and just start hatcheting those proposals and remove anything that's fluffy and move more to a bulleted point kind of approach. The second thing was that, and you're going to love to hear this, Mike, it's reinforced what I learned from you and what you've been doing for years. 65% of the proposals that won business, so more than half, had price options.
Yeah, good, better, best, right?
65%. Yeah. Now, what I do on that, Mike, is I have changed it. You heard me talk about it in Chicago, and that is I do a present option, competitive option, and a dominant option.
Okay.
But what's also interesting, and yeah, I know you're going to love to hear this, is that option number one was the most expensive. And if they bought into option number one, we never talked about option 2 and 3.
Exactly. That is the downsell approach. You can back down, but get them excited on, I'm all in. You're with me. I'm with you. Now, when they did this good, better, best approach and put it out there, did they just hand it to the advertiser and say, what do you think? Are they, I mean, because if the consultative sales process, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're solving a problem, but when you put in front of the advertiser 3 choices, that's not consultative, that's menu selling. Do you agree? That's just.
I agree. And so the way that it's positioned and the way that I train teams is pretty straightforward. I'll say, do you want to be dominant like so-and-so? And then I'll get them to identify another business in either their category or, because that boy really gets them stirred up.
Right.
When you start comparing advertisers, not talking about advertisers behind their back, do you want to be dominant like so-and-so? Oh, I don't like them. Well, do you agree that they advertise like crazy? Well, I do. Well, do you want to be competitive? That would be option 2. Maybe you could step down below them. Well, no, I don't want to do that. So you try to focus on that first option. But the 3 pricing options was where it was at. So I turned to the publisher I was working with on this study, and I said, hey, so why would you ever give a proposal to an advertiser that didn't have pricing options? He said, I don't know. And even when we presented to the salespeople, we just done this with really one group to really do a nice test on it. Pretty big group, by the way. Even when we presented the facts, 3 pricing options, 65% of the time closed business. Can you imagine having a 65% close rate, Mike? Can you imagine that?
It's unfathomable. All right, what other bullets really hit you from this study that we got to learn from?
Well, so the big thing was, and I don't see this in the newspaper space very much, more in magazines, TV, radio, the average page count on the proposals that won business were 7 pages or less. Those that lost business, almost 100% of the time, when it got above 9 pages, the proposals lost. And I thought, come on, guys, this should be pretty obvious, right? 9 pages? That's like literally War and Peace. I mean, come on, in ad sales land, right? So I know that might seem kind of silly to folks to even hear that. What are you talking about? 9 pages? Who would do that? People do. People do. I see it in the newspaper space. So you want to make sure those proposals are 7, pages or less. It's important.
I still think 7's a bit high. I just don't, unless it's a lot of visuals with very small bullets. Okay. What else? What else did you pick up?
The biggest thing that we saw in proposals that won, and you mentioned it earlier, was the link to success stories, not just saying, here are the 3 things in menu selling, the link to success stories. So what I've observed often in advertiser land, you've observed it, others have as well, is we always are trying to get to the important question of what is your budget? The problem with that question, and it's valid, we need to figure it out, is most advertisers are going to be saying, hey, $50. They just don't know what it takes. So what we're trying to do in this proposal study is set a reality of marketing in your community. The reality of marketing in this community as a realtor is you would need to spend, I'm making this up, $5,000 a month. The reality of marketing as a realtor in this market is full page weekly ads, maybe not daily, but full page weekly ads, X amount of digital, et cetera, et cetera. So when you get to the reality selling piece, the proposal gets bigger, Mike, because you're including success stories. So you would say, this is John Doe. We consider him to be a dominant advertiser. Here in general is what someone like him or you would do. And so these proposals had a lot more success stories aligned with current advertisers that are currently running with the paper, the magazine, et cetera.
So you've combined 2 things here that I'm okay with. Number one, I call it the borrowed trust syndrome. Ever since 2008, no one's going to spend money on anything unless they get a review first. They want to, I mean, that's it. I mean,
yep.
I'm assuming you're the same. I've seen your website. I've seen your pitches to your clients. It's all Ryan walks on water. He's made us tons of money. I want to adopt him. No, but that's important. But number 2 is then you're a proponent of like things like Borrell's Compass study,
right,
which would give you relevant information on
Correct.
what that advertising category should be spending. Now, I love Gordon,
Yeah.
but you could also do this on your own by showing other advertisers in the space at your TV station or radio station or whatever,
Yep.
and
Yep.
what
And
their
I think
spending levels as well.
a lot of times either the Brell information or the Pulse sales data that John Marling puts together, those folks, I mean, I think that data gets the conversation going,
Right.
keeping in mind that if you get too logical on an emotional person, they just kind of shut down.
Well, of course.
But the circumstance on it is that when we begin to ethically talk about other advertisers that love us, especially in a post-COVID world, and this is what's important here, if you remember back to the Great Recession, we went from 12-month contracts to 6-month contracts to 3 to nothing.
Right.
We're back. It's back, friends, unfortunately. So in a post-COVID world, it is vividly important to be able to share success stories and let people know, hey, you're about the only one not advertising right now. When have we ever been in a situation, Mike, in the last 10 to 12 years where people have really, this is a must advertise time.
It is.
People have been not thinking about your business, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, for the last, 160 days or 140 days or whatever it is. Advertising now is so important. Well, I've been in business for 25 years. They don't care about that.
No. Millennials have give that up. If I see one more ad that says been in business since 1968, that does not work in a millennial's mind today.
Yep.
50. It's not happening.
Yep.
All right, so we're in this COVID world.
Mm-hmm.
You've got people that deep in their soul, they know they have to do something.
Right.
What's happening, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're hitting them the wrong way. We're not doing the classic way to do this is fear of loss. You're going back to basic sales 101.
Yep.
If you don't market, you're in trouble. Is that pretty much the message that you're now screaming at your customers?
Yeah, there's a marketing gap that's been created between those advertisers that continue to advertise through COVID and those that did not.
Exactly.
So what I'm working with my coaching clients on right now is identifying the gap that's been created, helping to very kindly and humbly explain to the advertiser, hey, you did this, okay? You created the marketing gap. COVID didn't create it. You made the decision to stop marketing. So you created the marketing gap and your competitors kept marketing because maybe they knew better or whatever. Explaining that marketing gap and how the paper, the magazine, the radio, whatever, how that can help make that gap a little bit smaller. So I think that's an important piece. And that's where in the study, 55% of the winning proposals featured testimonials, featured case studies. The fear of missing out and being left behind is really strong, especially with the millennial buyers. They don't like that. And so because of that, we have to be featuring case studies, testimonials in everything we do. Mike, how about prospecting now? When you're prospecting with somebody,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So now, is this part of your study? Because you were just discussing proposals, but what are the best prospecting techniques that you're screaming right now in a COVID-19 world with hopefully a backside coming soon? Go ahead.
Yeah. So when 55% of the proposals that won business featured testimonials. So we take that information and realize that we should be doing that in the prospecting world. So when I'm reaching out to somebody, I'm not trying the approach of, hey, let's talk about marketing. What's your 2020 marketing plans? People are just trying to bounce back. They're just trying to survive. So instead, the approach is, hi, Mike, I saw on your website that you're doing this. We've had great success helping Bill with this. And I don't know if you guys are competitors or not, but I think we can help you too. We've got the best readers in town. And then they delve into some salesmanship that they probably should leave off. But what I do, especially now, is everyone's inundated with email. So I do this thing you heard me talk about called the rule of 3 and 3. 3 words in the subject line, 3 sentences in the email. That's it. Right. Short, simple, to the point. But if you're not specific and if you're not name dropping, so to speak, advertisers that love you, you're just trying to sell somebody something. And right now, they don't want to be sold. I mean,
so basically, that's what I've been preaching. First line should be, we're having amazing success for Bill's Bait Shop just down your street. I'd love to chat with you about how we can have some of the same success with you. Right. And that's pretty much all. That creates the fear of loss. Now, you said 3, but so 3 lines. Do you believe in the 3-wave approach? After the email, you do a voicemail too? What is your...
Yeah. So I think you'll love this. And I've not really talked about it. So this will be kind of a breaking thing on your podcast. So I don't ask people to call me back anymore. About 7, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, I stopped asking people to call me back because they just didn't.
They don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do now is I will say, hey, Mike, you do not need to call me back. And I don't introduce myself. Ring, ring, your voicemail picks up. Hi, Mike, you do not need to call me back.
Brilliant.
I just sent you an email about blank, subject line such and such. If you could give me a quick reply to that email, I'd appreciate it. Again, Mike, you do not need to call me back. And, oh, by the way, it's Ryan from the Daily Herald calling.
Beautiful.
You know.
And I tell reps to rehearse the voicemail before they leave it. Do you agree?
I agree. I agree.
Close your eyes, get into the mode. Okay, so now let's go back to we might be getting off topic. You want to discuss your report,
okay.
and I promise I'll bring it back. I know Joe Navarro. I mean, we've met, and we're Twitter, back and forthers. He's, Mr. Body Language. 68% of the sales process is nonverbal. We are now in a COVID-19 world where walking in the door is not as cool as it used to be.
Right.
So how do you get that emotion I know you believe sales is a transference of energy.
It is.
Okay,
it is.
So
1,000%.
what is your suggestions on that?
Well, so we need to make it as easy as possible for people to buy from us, approach them from a point of being helpful and not being a salesperson. And then also sales reps need to be really, really great at selling with video. So what I'm doing is, because there's stranger danger that's in play now.
Right.
It didn't used to be there. I mean, we've been taught since birth not to talk to strangers, but people come into your store all the time. It's not that big of a deal. Well, now everybody that comes in is a potential danger to you, including a salesperson from the paper. So what I'm doing is I'm using tools, online tools like Loom or Soapbox to record prospecting videos. So you'd see my face and say, hey, Mike, I've got some great ideas for you. I'm helping Bill's Bait Shop, to use your example. And I'm sending that in an email so they can begin to see me and build this pseudo virtual relationship. But what I'm also noticing is reps that can sell on Zoom, like we're meeting on Zoom, they are rocking it. Because think about it. In some towns, it takes you 30 minutes to get from one side to the other.
Oh, of course.
Now, I want to be really clear with all the publishers and owners out there. I'm not suggesting that we don't do face-to-face calls. However, because of COVID, because of stranger danger, we're not going to get as many meetings. So you need to get really good. So the first step is using video tools to kind of introduce yourself and show your excitement and your passion. And then the second piece is getting good at these Zoom calls. But I've had advertisers that have said, oh, Ryan, come on by. It really depends where you are.
Exactly.
Come on by, Ryan. I don't care. Sit across the table from me, whatever. Wear your mask if you want to. But also, Mike, and you probably agree with this, no matter your political viewpoint, when you go to visit an advertiser, always take a mask with you, even if you don't like them, and say, oh, would you like me to wear the mask? And they'll tell you, don't you tell them, what to do.
And you also suggest that all reps be politically benign in their social media. Do you agree? I mean,
I agree 1,000%. And you want to know how hard it is for me not to say some things that I'm thinking.
No one knows where I lean politically, and it's none of your damn business till I retire. Then I can go nuts. But at this point, I'm not going to alienate half my universe.
Right.
And
don't assume because you're in a red state that you're talking to a red advertiser.
You don't know
it's backfired so many times. The other thing, quite honestly, it's just not appropriate and it's not needed to build rapport. Right now, these advertisers, Mike, they want us to help recover or rebound. I'm seeing a lot of bounce back programs the newspapers are launching. And that's what they want. They want help bouncing back to business, whatever that means. I mean, heck, look at some of these folks in some communities, Mike. They're just now starting to open restaurants in Philly. Just now, as of last week. So, I mean, there's a lot of places in the country that still are not back to any level of normalcy. So we've got a lot of time to sell.
Okay, COVID-19 has impacted certain advertiser categories hard.
Very hard.
I would not buy stock right now. This is one man's opinion, and I'm likely always wrong. I buy high and sell low constantly, but I would not buy stock in an airline, a hotel, or a hospitality convention type businesses right now, because I think that's about a year or a year and a half away.
Yep.
But there is a pent-up demand now for dental procedures. There's a pent-up demand for pain management. There's a pent-up home improvements on fire. Don't you agree right now?
I agree 1,000%.
So which categories do you think are the best for us to go after right now as a media industry?
Yeah, we just did. I did a webinar a couple weeks back with the folks from Pulse Sales Tools. The largest category growth, I'm going to read it. I pulled it up on my screen in the background. I thought this might come up. Largest category growth. We could make this a game show. You could guess these. Private tutors, huge category growth in private tutors. Imagine that.
Mhm.
Anything to do, as you said, with home and garden, anything to do with that. Bottled water delivery, any type of water delivery services, huge growth in that category. Wine shops.
Does not surprise me.
Yep. Tutoring centers, mortgage brokers are seeing a massive surge right now. And wholesale, anything to do with lumber, marijuana dispensaries, mental health, anything to do with consulting. Counseling, not consulting, counseling and things like that. And a real big one is carpet cleaning, any type of large scale cleaning services. If I was going to tell somebody a category in the newspaper business to go after right now, cleaning, commercial cleaning, boy, go after it, because they should be advertising like crazy. But private tutoring, anything to do with home education is raging right now. So set your sales teams down, maybe do a 3x3 challenge is what I call it. 3 categories, 3 advertisers per category, and make it a game. Most reps love to play a little game. And then use this information from this study, which, basically kind of wraps up, kind of like this, Mike. There's way too much text. You got to give more options. Stop giving all the digital specs in the proposal. The proposal shouldn't replicate your conversation with them. Bullet points, bullet points, bullet points. And if nothing else, price options. You got to give people price options. So my hope, Mike, in this is that sales reps will stop denying the facts and will realize that if they'll follow a formula, repeatable pattern of success, there's a reason that Tom Brady will be successful when the NFL plays again in Tampa Bay, because he's a winner. He identifies repeatable patterns of success, and he does this. He repeats them. And winners repeat winners. Winners replicate winners,
Right. If a product doesn't work at McDonald's, they remove it, and not one McDonald's serves the food differently from another. I mean, it's just,
right.
It's a standardized, successful process.
Yes.
Final thoughts on motivation, because you're really not just talking to the rep now. If I may be so bold, you're talking to the ad director or I don't know what title. I mean, I always say, who's in charge of the troops? I don't care what the title is, right? If you're in your office all the time and not out, motivating, leading them, riding with them, you're not the sergeant. Who's the sergeant? Who's in charge?
Yeah.
Give them that final motivation they need, because they're walking into work right now and they're going, oh my God, billing's down. I mean, what do they need to know from you to be the best leader they can?
There's an age-old thought that money is the ultimate motivator for salespeople, and you're dealing with different age groups. Now, probably for guys like you and I, money is the ultimate motivating factor. We want to pay our bills off and get rocking. Here's what's interesting. There's a middle group of people where money's the motivating the Gen Xer group right there. Once you get to become a baby boomer and so on, you start not worrying as much about money as you start worrying about enjoying life. You've got the millennials that are no longer children. And this is where a lot of ad directors, they have to change their brain. Millennials aren't children. You're just seeing them as children. Money's not the ultimate motivating factor. So I'd like to ask my salespeople, what can this company provide you as a motivating factor? What can we do? And you'll be amazed. It's usually not money. Right. It's extended holidays. It's paid time off, PTO, preferred parking, better coffee, those type of things. Right. And ask them what they need to be motivated. And the comp plans may or may not be the ultimate motivating factor. The other piece is to recognize that a lot of us that are leading these sales teams, we just carry around a big stick because that's how we were raised. Do it or you're in trouble. You're going to go to the principal's office. Right. It doesn't work. That Game of Thrones mentality of management, where when somebody doesn't do something, you just, you send them out, you just get rid of them. It doesn't work like that. So the other piece is really being specific with your expectations. Set some actionable goals. Hey guys, we need this many calls. We need to have this many meetings. And if you meet it, here's what we're going to do for you. Let's do something cool together. Let's do something fun together. But the biggest thing is figuring out the difference between coaching and mentoring. Everybody thinks they're a coach. They're probably not. Coaching is great, but you're probably mentoring people, which is fine, but coaching is different. Coaching is guiding them on the personal development side. So be careful you're not confusing the two of those. But I really believe that you need to play a lot of games. Get people excited to come to work. Don't play games with them psychologically, but put some KPIs in place that make sense and ask them, what do you want? And you'll be amazed what they want to stay motivated. And when you figure it out, then you've got a winning scenario. But just remember, and if you don't believe me, look up Daniel Pink, What Really Motivates People on YouTube. Daniel Pink, what really motivates people on YouTube. An MIT study proves that money is not the ultimate motivating factor. even in sales.
There
So
you
just
go.
keep that in mind.
All right, we want to thank you for letting you release this information first at Editor and Publisher.
My
I
pleasure.
got my little thing, and I am honored. If someone wants to see this, have access to it, where do they go online? What can they do to find more information?
Yeah, the best way is just to go to my website, ryandohrn.com, and the last name is Dohrn. And there's a training section there where you can click and go over to the media side of the site. And always, my first 30 minutes with folks, Mike, is always free. And so I'm always happy to get on a call with anybody out there in the newspaper space that needs a little help. But thanks for having me.
Oh, no, give me the email address real quick. What's your email address?
Easy, ryandohrn.com.
Dohrn. Give me a phone
Dohrn.
number real quick if someone wants to call you on their mobile right now.
Yeah, 803-634 3886.
Ryan, we love you. We should do this more often. I feel guilty that I have not had you in earlier. You always make me feel very motivated, and you know something? You're giving out the right information. Keep going. This industry needs you. And stay
I appreciate it. Be careful, my friend. Be careful. Somebody's going to want you to come back and sell. So be careful.